Yeah, I don't have it, John. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I have it open here, so I can share.
Yeah, they migrated us over to Microsoft 365 and it's
Ah.
going great. And they migrated our email. They're starting to migrate all of our emails over to readingma.gov, which is really awesome. But then my name change is what screwed it up.
Well,
So
it happened.
the computer can't understand how I'm now Wood and not the other one, so it's not identifying. So my email is messed up, but they'll figure it out.
You're gonna love Office 365.
I know.
So much better.
So obviously Mark's here. I don't see John Parsons yet. Hi, Mark.
Well,
guess.
give John another minute, then we'll start.
And if you, anyone on the Zoom right now, if you could just write your name and address in the chat, that would be great.
Email address, you mean?
What's that?
Email or physical?
Physical address. So sorry, everyone. Thank you.
So the non-recalc people you're talking about. Yep.
So we have a note of who's here. Thank you.
I'm going to call the meeting to order.
Yep.
Okay, we'll take the roll call. Ron Assini?
Here.
Nora Bucko? I think you're muted there, Nora.
It doesn't say. Do
No, there you are.
me?
Oh, okay.
Now we can. Yeah.
Maybe the volume was down a little bit. Mark Doxer?
Here.
And Michael Coltman's not going to be here. John Sasso?
Present.
John Parsons? Not as yet. John O'Neill present. Okay, so the first item on the agenda is vote on a recommendation for the site for a possible senior/community center. Does someone, I'm not sure, should we just call for, just roll call on the vote? What do people think? Just do it that way, or do we need some more discussion?
So just a thought, we got two items tonight. One is to pick to the site recommendation. The second really is the presentation. And one of the things for the presentation is a slide that right now is blank. And I think we need to decide what that slide should contain. Clearly, the site recommendation, but are there any other things that should be on that slide also? So I don't know if you want to kind of do the site first as you're proposing, just kind of say what's the site, and then talk a little bit about what that recommendation slide might look like. I put together some of my own thoughts that I'm happy to share with the group, but not sure how you want to proceed with it.
That would suggest that okay, Ron.
Sure. I was going to say we just vote for the site selection first, and then discuss what we have to do in the slide afterwards, and that'll guide us.
Okay, I see nodding of heads and everything, so that's how we'll proceed. So I'll do the roll call, and you can give your recommendation.
So why don't, John, can I make a suggestion instead? Why don't we put forward a motion?
Okay.
That has a site recommendation, and then you can get it seconded, and then there can be a discussion about it. You know, if people have comments, they want to change it, whatever. Okay. Well, that's how we'll proceed. Entertain a motion.
Second.
So go ahead, Ron. Sorry.
Second the motion.
We have to have the,
there's no motion yet. We need the
I thought he was.
No, the motion is for a particular location.
So
So
how
I'm
about, I'll
happy-
make a
I'm-
motion
Go ahead.
to recommend Simon's Way as the site location for recal. And I'm wondering if we should include pending final information from the Permanent Building Committee.
Okay,
Okay, I'll second that motion.
okay, discussion.
Just, I want to follow up quickly on the comment about pending the PBC. I'm okay with seconding it, but in some respects, it's a bit irrelevant, I think, at the moment, right? Given the current process. Meaning that our recommendation is going to kind of go forward, given what you guys have heard thus far. It's like, it's not really intending that PBC is going to come back, at least at this point, with anything more tangible. At least that's what I understood you guys to say the other night.
So if I could respond, I would, this is one of the reasons why I wanted to kind of figure out the two things together. I would accept as a friendly amendment to take away the pending thing, to just make our recommendation on a site. And then I would suggest that the second thing we do as it relates to what should be in the presentation, we can talk in a little bit more detail about kind of what that means and what the process will be, because I think we owe that to the select board.
Yeah, no, I think that's a better approach. I mean, I agree. So I would, if Mark would entertain a friendly amendment, I would amend that motion to just be recommend the Simon's Way site for recal.
Accept it as a friendly amendment.
Okay. Further discussion.
I don't know if people want to get into any more detail about I mean, we've really discussed, I think, a lot over the different sites. We've done our own recommendations. We've racked and stacked them. We've gone through feedback from the public and from other committees and commissions. So I feel pretty comfortable that, I don't need to necessarily spend a whole lot more time on hashing through what we've done in the past. But I think that's just my perspective. If other folks want to chime in.
Now, are we agreeing with Mark or are we having our own votes?
I'm having difficulty hearing you, Nora. I don't know if other people are. I just,
Yeah, it's very low.
Let me turn this up.
I think you turn up your own voice.
right.
So
Are-
Nora, I think your question is, are we agreeing? So that what I understand the case to be is that we now have a motion on the floor to vote for or against the recommendation for Simon's Way as the preferred site for recal from the recal committee. So if I think John would say if somebody wants to present alternative motions, that's a different discussion. But for now, the initial motion that's on the floor is a recommendation specifically for that site.
Okay.
See, and I
If
would
I could-
say, Nora, that if that vote fails, then of course we would go, another motion.
Vote.
And if I can suggest too, Nora, if you have comments that could include not agreeing,
Right,
those would be good to do now too.
yes. So Nora,
Yeah, I agree. Simon's Way for a recommendation.
okay. So any other comments before I call for the vote? Seeing none. So now we will do a roll call on the vote. Ron Asini, this is on the
Yes.
motion to approve Simon's Way. Okay.
I
Ron.
approve Simon's Way.
Nora Bucko,
Simon's Way.
Mark Doxer,
Yes.
John Sasso,
Yes.
John O'Neill, yes. So we have a quorum and all the members present vote are unanimous for Simon's Way. Okay, so now then we can go into the discussion about, both the slide, but before we do the slide, do we want to talk about the process? It goes to the Permit Building Committee. And see, I was kind of agreeing with John when you were saying pending. My thing is, no, they're going to they were looking for a recommendation for us. We're giving them that recommendation. They then will do their due diligence you know, and proceed with that. And if for some reason, I don't even know if they would come back to us. Because then it's kind of like out of our hands, isn't it? Or am I missing something?
I don't think you're missing anything. However, I think we need to share with the select board the process we anticipate going forward from here. So
Yes,
we made
okay.
our recommendation
Mhm.
and
Yes.
there are some other things. And my thought was that in our recommendation slide, we talk a little bit about what those next steps are.
Okay, and so we should do that right now. That's where we're at.
So, do you want me to, so I actually have made a few more updates based on some additional feedback that came back over the last day or so. I did not get a chance to address your specific comment, Mark, but I'm gonna, put, if it's okay with you, I'll put the slides up. Can we walk through them anyhow? Is that kind of on our agenda anyhow? So,
Well,
or is
I
it
was
specific?
hoping actually we wouldn't be going slide by slide because then
Okay.
people, you know, I would rather say if people have particular slide they want to address, because I'm really not.
I do actually, John. I have really like a half a dozen slides really that I think are worth asking about. They're
That's
things.
fine. Yes.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Not all
Yeah.
32.
Oh, yes. Yes. I just didn't, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
But
no, 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 no.
sometimes I've
added
God forbid, but we
verbiage.
get into micromanaging. But
Right, and I've added verbiage to the slides and the outline and the notes so that, you know, whether it's myself or whoever's presenting this will have some context. But yeah, let
Sure.
me
All
see
right,
if I
bring
can
'em up.
share my screen. Okay, can people see my screen?
Yes.
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 All right, so I'm just gonna go to some very specific slides. So I did, we had a specific recommendation to basically call out seniors community center equals the Reading Center for Active Living. So I put that right up front.
Great.
Maryland and Jenna provided some feedback on the number of populations. So I didn't change this slide, but I did add a note about currently we're at 7,760 out of 27,101 in 60 plus for 2024.
The other
So
part
before you go ahead,
thing was projection of 2030. I don't know if we.
Yeah, I mean, I can add that as a bullet, but it wasn't actually in the numbers I got, but I didn't think it was that critical at this point.
I would agree, but if you want to, like, just like you had a note down below.
Yeah.
If we get
maybe
the
you
numbers
have
ahead of
another
time,
note
yeah.
There.
Yeah.
Well, Mark,
Also-
looks like you want to say something. What?
the second bullet point needs to just get fixed, right? It says 28.6% of Reading residents are 60 plus and percent growing. I think that
Oh.
was supposed
That
to
was
either have
Yeah,
a
we were supposed to,
number or a
we were
change.
supposed to, right, we were supposed to get a number for there. Yes. I remember that from last meeting.
Okay. All right, I'll highlight that. All right, so this is a slide that has gone through quite a bit of change. I did actually get some feedback from Chris the last, I think, a day or so ago when I just had a chance to put this together. So I thought this was, I was kind of trying to address the issue of what are we really trying to convey in terms of capacity. So certainly open for thoughts, but you know, basically the core space constraints, you know, of the amount of usable space. You know, we effectively only have 3 multi-purpose program rooms for all intents and purposes. And I have you tried to play pool in the game room? I like that kind of thought. Yeah, you know, people, you'll hit the wall with the pool stick. And then some real actual capacity numbers. These came from Chris. First floor main room, you know, basically 60 people with tables and chairs and 85 with chairs only. And the second floor, you really only have 2 other rooms that have very limited capacity. So I think that starts to convey, you know, kind of the numerics of the situation. This was an example he gave me of a recent wait list. And he says a lot of those types of programs have wait lists 25 plus on a regular basis. I thought this was really a very telling item, which is that even with all of this, the use of the center is increasing. So we continue to see growth, and so I think this is kind of where we're pushing up against the top of the capacity, and at the same time we're very limited, and we're already seeing the impacts of that. So I thought this was a reasonable story to tell as it relates to to the capacity story.
The
Yeah, I
picture,
think-
the overflow from Chair Yogurt, at least to me, it's really not visible enough to be able to tell what's happening there.
Yeah, it's an overflow situation.
Right, but it was too bad they couldn't
Can't tell.
got a picture from a different direction. I don't know. Yeah.
There's a room behind there. It's two rooms.
Rooms, and Anna's in this front room.
Okay. All right.
They're actually overflowing into the office space where
Yeah.
Anna and the volunteer coordinator Janet sits.
Yeah.
And I can also provide another picture of the great room as well, if that's helpful with all the people in it.
If you
It
have
is.
additional pictures, that would be great. I mean, I think the intent is clear, but,
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
Thank you.
okay. All right, so anyhow, that was one slide that I took a bit of work on. Also, kind of consolidated some of the comments and pictures together in a single slide. This was actually I think this slide is very similar to one that we presented previously. So I thought this worked well. Again, to convey not only the the bullets of what sort of issues we're dealing with, but some actual visuals on that as well. So I thought that was fine.
John, do you want to just switch 60 plus and age, switch the order? So it reads a growing age 60 plus community needs. I think it might read better.
All right, let me see the next slide. I'm gonna. Someone asked about images of the sites. I actually pulled this from one of our prior slides. Basically images of, so this kind of pairs up with the centers that we visited. So this is kind of the images of different centers that we saw and the different types of rooms and ideas and concepts we got when we went to those centers. So I kind of think that's all people were really asking for. So we could have gone into fewer pictures and more imagery, but I thought this was adequate.
There was a picture of Needham that showed a nice like cafe area where people could wait as almost like a waiting area for other
Yeah,
events. Is that in?
I
is
mean,
that
I
in there?
have. I mean, I can
Mm.
go through other pictures and see what we have.
Well, there's a couple
I
of
think-
pictures of waiting
I
areas.
think the
Yeah.
intent really is just
Yeah,
to convey that,
possibilities,
we've
yeah.
seen a lot of different things and we've used this to help influence. I mean, I like, this type of a picture, shows kind of the
Yeah.
reception
Yeah.
and waiting.
Right,
area.
right,
So there's-
right.
There's, different ways to look at this, so.
Yep.
All right, let me, keep moving on here. Okay, so, I got some feedback on the Randolph, visit, so I've added that in here. Really, and people can certainly look at the details. What I wanted to convey is that there's definitely more work to be done here. But Elder Services has already benefited from some of the cross-pollination of program ideas. I actually created a backup slide, which I'll show you guys later, that lists some of the program and service stuff that's really going on at the senior center today, at the program, the PSC today. So I felt it probably belonged there. We can just talk to the fact that there has been work going on about trying to enhance and increase the amount of programs, the types of programs, the different things that can be done. So I think that's that was kind of my perspective on this.
Yeah.
And that we are going to certainly have to
And
do
John,
more work.
and it's the reason why the population has increased, or
Right.
the participation has increased quite a bit because
Right.
of it. So, yeah.
So anyhow, again, I always think it's good to continue to show that we have continued to look at other places, and those have been valuable pieces of information to help us identify new things to do.
Did we include, maybe I missed it. Did we include what the operating budget is for PCS somewhere?
So I had it in a prior presentation.
Right.
I don't know if it's here. Is it? Yeah, it's right here. This is an old number, so I might have to go refresh it.
Well, but it's probably more realistic because it doesn't have the additional ARPA monies,
Yeah.
which are
Okay.
one time.
So, yeah, we did, this is, again, I'm not, this is somewhat of an old slide, but I think it's still representative of kind of the comparative things that we saw.
Does that look right, Jenna? 250K?
Yeah, and we do have a budget that we get every single month, itemizing out all of the salaries and the expenses. So I can send John the exact number that we have for expenses and for the salaries as well, if that's
Right,
helpful.
but are you separating off the seniors portion of those salaries? In other words, there are joint positions. I keep on coming back to that fact. You can't go by the human services / elder.
Yeah, I think we had an elder services line item in the.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
budget.
it's just elder services. Yeah. I have
Not
all
the
that.
town,
I'll
not the
John.
town budget. The town budget wasn't broken out. It was, I thought was misleading. But anyway, okay.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. All right, let me keep going to other items. So I did a little bit of editing on this slide here, just to again emphasize that we did look for other options. We focused on these three sites, and then just to remind ourselves of what we actually did, which was develop the design options, hold numerous meetings, and perform comparative assessments. So we were kind of missing that from this, so I wanted to include it. Then the other slides are really just the images. So I had a question for the group as to whether, Jenna provided me with this updated site view as compared to this one. I think Ron actually had commented that he thought this one looked nicer. But
Yeah.
do we have a strong opinion from the group as to which of these two slides? Because in my mind, it's not as critical. I mean, the only reason we wanted to add this one is to say, just the options are there, that there are more things we can do on the site as it relates to the external pieces. I don't necessarily think there's a huge difference, but if there's a reason why we want to show 6 versus 4, that's entirely up to the group to decide.
I would recommend we show 6. I think that, so even at the last select board meeting, there are a number of folks that are looking at, what can happen with pickleball in different locations at Simon's Way. And I think just, again, you're not guaranteeing anything, but showing the possibility here of multiple courts, more courts, I think is helpful. And actually it kind of lines up pretty nicely to the back of Burbank. And there was another discussion, might as well bring it up here just for a second also, about what would happen if we were to move this whole thing to behind the ice arena as an option. And my thought on that is that that's a great backup slide if there's a question about it, but I don't think it needs to be front and center right now.
Mm.
Yeah, I did see some back and forth on that, but I don't feel fluent enough to even handle that question, to be honest with you. But okay.
I'm happy to talk to it if it comes up.
All right, so then I'm going to get rid of this slide and keep just this one, if that's okay with folks.
Okay. I just wanted to note at this point that John Parsons has joined us. So for the record,
Okay.
John.
So does John have to be added for the voting at all, or is that already taken place?
No,
Okay.
not yet. It's
Okay.
done.
Okay, just keep going here. So this was the slide that I struggled with, and I have to be honest with you, I'm still struggling with it. This was where I talked about wanting to talk about the story. And it didn't really come out the way I wanted it to, but I'll let folks take a look and see if they have any additional thoughts. I mean, I thought this was helpful. I did get some feedback Jenna gave me some feedback on conservation and community development. Actually, she also mentioned recreation, and I didn't add that yet. Short story is, I just wanted to kind of just talk about, in very general terms, what we looked at and how this kind of compared and what sort of feedback and input. And then there's still a whole bunch of, just as before I come back to this, there are still a bunch of benefit and drawback slides that come after it. And then the next slide after these is the site recommendation slide. And then the last slide is where our next step slide. So just quickly, I wanted to, before we jump back to that, I wanted to let people know where we're heading in this. And that's actually the last, other than the Q&A, that's the last formal slide of the presentation.
So a couple of thoughts, John, see if this works. So first, just a quick, easy one on your bullet points on the bottom, meeting with the butters. It says objectives to Oakland roadside. I think you probably mean
sorry.
objections.
Yep, sorry. What happens when you look at this too often?
That's why you have more eyes. What do you think about, I think that we want to simplify kind of the PSC new. I think it's too complicated, and it introduces the gym, no gym. And it just, I would suggest instead that it says PSC new, 20,000 with gym, 6 rooms with gym, no lounge, 1970. And now it's a lot easier to read. And I wonder if instead of saying option with gym, just say adding gym results in reduced program areas and no walking track. I wonder if that simplifies it.
I'm certainly fine with that, given where our recommendation is heading.
How does that work for others?
I
Yeah.
think the simpler the better on that, so I like it.
And is it still accurate? This is PSC new with 2-story parking garage?
That is absolutely, yeah, you still, regardless of which option, you're still correct.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice and simple.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
So the way I was thinking of sharing this is just to remind people. So we're going to talk, so kind of now that we've kind of talked about these 3 sites and we've talked about the work we've done to present this to the community and the rack and stack that we've done both as a recalc group and with COA's input, we wanted to sit down and come up with a way to consolidate and collect up all the information we could to drive to a recommendation. And so this was kind of a very first broad brush view of the sites and the approaches. And then in addition, I think this was actually something that was brought up a number of times by community members was, let's not do this in a vacuum. Make sure you're talking to other people. And so we did reach out to a number of other town organizations, as well as feedback from abutters. These kind of brought us to the conclusion, which we're going to talk about in a minute. And then, right from that, without talking way more to the slide, I mean, if people have questions, we can certainly dive into it. I think it's worth at least stating that when they look at the PS, they'll probably come out when we look at this particular slide is that, we'll talk about just don't forget underneath this big rectangle, which includes a gym and some of the second floor items, there's 2 levels of a parking garage. That's something that we will talk about there. But that's actually what really makes that current Pleasant Street site a very constrained site, very limited, and certainly as it relates to the other options, a less desirable, and that certainly came out in the site ranking. And I think that's how I would present this slide at that point.
It's also a major impact to the abutters there as well too. there are two homes that are very, very close to it.
Oh, yeah, and there's basically no, I mean, I think, Rachel in her presentation, was showing that, of all of the sites, this one here didn't meet the setbacks, didn't meet, certain things. It was,
Yeah.
and if you saw the actual images, the ground
Yeah,
size images, it
yeah.
just was a brutal,
And
Okay.
the proposed design for the garage was
Right.
not,
Yeah.
not conducive to senior driving. So,
anybody's driving, let alone senior driving.
yeah. It was difficult driving. for
And the
sure.
least amount of spaces, even at that, even with the,
Yeah, it didn't even reach the required
So,
or recommended.
right, so that's what I was gonna say here, and then I was gonna jump to, okay, here's some, more of the benefit and drawback feedback that we got. And I was gonna, the one other thing that's not on this slide that's a benefit is that there is an opportunity by not using the Pleasant Street Center as a place is that we could either reuse, rent, or sell it for alternative uses. So that's another benefit of selecting a different site. And then that leads us to some drawbacks. Obviously, a significant number of issues relative to traffic and construction approach. And the abutters enumerated a whole bunch of other issues that we're not going to go through here, but certainly have been documented in our presentations.
Yep.
And then that leads us here, which based on the conversation and vote we just had, this would be
So if I could, John, when you're done with this, I'd love to share not a slide I created, but I guess I'll call it some bullet points that to some extent mixes the site recommendation with the next slide.
okay.
So it may be that they are actually two slides, or maybe it's one slide, whatever. John O'Neill, would that be all right if I share that for a moment?
Why don't you go ahead and do that now? Because I'm honestly, the point of this slide and this slide, I would have no problem, in my opinion, if we wanted to put this together as one slide instead of two, I would be okay. Well,
It might be
frankly,
too
I was
much.
thinking this slide here was just literally recalc recommends Simmons Way, period. Nothing else on the slide.
Yeah, that may be great, and maybe what I've got written is more the next slide. But let me I need you to stop sharing
I
before I
am. Yep.
start
Yeah.
sharing.
Give me a second. I'm doing it. Okay,
Okay.
I'm done.
Oh, hang on. This is too small to see. Draft recalc. Let's try it. Okay, so let me tell you my thinking and then have at it. Not only are we making a site recommendation, this is the final recalc presentation to the select board.
Yep.
So I think it not only has to include the site recommendation, but also other recommendations, if you will, our conclusions, what advice we're giving to the board. So I tried to include a number of things like that. And again, please feel free to tear at this, but this is kind of the structure. One, new centers needed, community high priority, long overdue. It reiterates what we said very early in this presentation, right? So
Yep.
this is the timing question. Number two, the preferred building includes a gym and a walking track. Best meets the needs of the 60 plus and the broader community. Other communities that included them love them, and those communities that did not include them wish that they had. Number three, Simon's Way preferred site. And here I just brought in, it's reviewed by Recalc and Council on Aging using evaluation criteria from multiple other communities that rank Simon's Way as number one. Number two is Oakland Road, but some concerns. Current PSC, too small to accommodate size, especially if gym to be considered. And then these next pieces are, okay, where do we go from here? Okay, PBC now engaged in finding an owner's project manager, and then they'll complete the site review. These are the wrong words, but I said to concur with our recommendation, provide cautions and a plan, and this is a September, October 2024 estimated time. Let me just finish it and then we'll come back. Upon completion of the review, return to the select board to finalize site selection, move ahead to schematics. So this is now the PBC will do that because we will not exist.
Right.
And that's already funded with ARPA funds. There may be a request for some funding for site testing during the schematics. And it may be possible that there are some funds that PBC had. There may be some other funds that can be used, or maybe it's town meeting, unclear. The next step would be to come to the select board in late 2023 or early 24 with plan and costs. Again,
You
this is,
mean 24 and 25?
I meant 24 and 25. Thank you very much. I'm thinking a year behind. And present to Springtown meeting 2020.
25.
Yeah.
With the site, an opportunity to explore new uses for the Pleasant Street site. So those are kind of themes that I thought we should talk about just a little bit. We kind of did that, John, already in your kind of after recommendation slide, kind of what's next. But a couple of these I thought were important to emphasize, and you're hearing a little bit of my bias, so I want everybody else to see if they agree with it.
I think you hit a good point, because I've always thought about this, to your point, that this is our last put in front of the select board, out in front of the community. So we should put it all together. So I like that. The only thing I think that's missing is just that, and I don't know how we say this. Maybe you feel it's not necessary, but just that this item 6 regarding plans and costs, that the community needs to really scrutinize how, in fact, they're going to fund this given the other priorities. And I don't know if that's worth saying that or not, but that was my only other thing that I was thinking as you were putting that together. Otherwise, I think this gives a good. I really do like the idea of re-emphasizing our points up front. So I think this is reasonable. We can I can look back at that slide to see if there's anything else on there that we said that.
Can I make a may I make a recommendation?
John Parsons has his hand up.
Oh, John's got his hand up. Okay.
Hey, John.
The thing that I would like to comment on number 3, Simon's Way preferred site reviewed by RECAC and Council on Aging. I don't recall, to my recollection, the Council on Aging ever actually voting that they preferred Simon's Way. I would say all the consensus from all the discussions are that they prefer Simon's Way, but when they never voted on it, do we really want to have this in here?
So John,
That's why we voted tonight, because we hadn't clearly voted until now.
And come back to John Parsons' point, maybe one of the things to do is to go back to the council and ask if they can do this. This presentation isn't going to take place till August 18th.
Yeah.
Or excuse me, August 20th. So there's plenty of time.
That's John Sasso has cursed us here.
Boy, have I cursed you guys for that.
So I think it's a good point. I think it would behoove the Council on Aging to formally vote. If they haven't already, then they should, in my opinion.
So can I make a recommendation for the site selection slide then? It's almost like 1, 2, and 3. RECAL recommends Simon's Way for the following reasons. Boom, 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 and those 3 things.
And then the second slide is next steps and
Yep.
process.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah,
I like
two
that.
slides. 1, 2, and
Yep.
3 is one slide. May want to look at the order, but whatever. And then the next
Yep.
slide is more, okay, here's what's next.
No, I think that's good.
Yep.
Yeah.
Works really well.
Good work.
And I think we want to introduce number 7 also. I think that's an important one. And John Sasso, you brought that up too. And we've been thinking it through, that if we do go to Simon's Way, then the town has an opportunity. I think that's the best way to state it in terms of what Pleasant Street, what that site can and should be. And I think that's a committee and a discussion.
I don't know if, well, you tell me. We have talked about what's happening with Killam, and that it would be good, I think the right way to go for town meeting to be able to see both things as far as cost and getting to your point, John Sasso, about, having the overview. I think those are the two big things. The Community Preservation Act is another, but those are the two, major items. I don't know whether we put that here or what.
Yeah, so I have a lot of torn feelings on this one. On the one hand, we were not specifically asked to address how's the town is specifically going to fund this from that perspective. That really
Mhm.
wasn't necessarily in our charter.
Right.
Having said that, we were asked to look at financial in general and kind of, look at centers and things like that. So I think it's why I'm comfortable with at least saying people should be aware that we do ultimately, from a next step perspective, and the financial forum, that the initial one that was held, there'll be more of that to come. The one piece I will say, there is one piece that's been nagging in the back of my mind, and I haven't really shared it up until now, but I think it's worth discussing. Is we do have at least an indication, and maybe it's a year or two old, but at least an indication based on the survey that we did. And I did add in the slide that I presented, I put some notes about, what the community said in terms of how much money they would be willing to spend on a senior center, senior/community center. And I guess I look at that in the context of how would that actually play as it relates to what it is we're trying to accomplish. And that's why I look at it and say, hey, the community said that, if this was going to cost more than X dollars per household per year, then were you interested in supporting it or not? And that's the only data we have. And I agree, it's not that current, but it's still, relevant. And so I think that's the only piece that I'd want to explore further as it relates to what it is we're going to present and what is the financial solution to this. And I don't feel entirely comfortable driving that through this presentation or our discussion, but I do think it's something that I continue to keep in the back of my mind every time we have this conversation.
Right. As far as the survey, I mean, it's what we all the data we have, but they didn't have anything concrete. In other words, it's one thing, for hypothetically to ask me if I'm willing to, pay, X number of dollars to my taxes. And then if I see, wow, this is going to have this, it's going to have that. Hey, maybe if I pay another 100, I think that's what happened in some of these local high school things. Amounts of money that I never expected some communities would vote for. They've been doing it, like nearby Stoughton.
Again, I'm of the opinion, and this is not a recalc issue again,
Right.
that the town has to present a good picture and make people feel that this is underhand, that we understand exactly how to manage this, and we know what it's going to look like, and here are all the things that we're doing to try to mitigate the actual cost of it. I think that is really a discussion that will have to continue beyond this group.
Right. FinCom should be taking the lead on.
FinCom and I think all the elected boards in terms of thinking about how this is
Yes.
forward and talking with the whole community about it. I mean, John, you're spot on. I think we can't, I'm not sure what we would do right now other than to be aware and to be doing what we're doing with the financial forums and other activities. Because for example, I personally would recommend that we utilize some free cash toward some of these building projects as an example. And other people may agree or disagree with that. But there's an impact on the amount of tax increase that would come forward if we used any of it. So just as an example, any grants that we might be able to fund could have an impact also. So I think sharing as we have more information, letting FinCom lead with these financial forums to have the community discussion, those are to come. Those need to happen. But there's nothing, I don't know there's anything we can add right now that helps that.
Okay. Just wanted to raise it.
So, Mark, if you can send me a copy of that slide that you had or that document, I will update. I'll try to work on some more updates based on that, just those last two slides. If there were any other comments or thoughts on what I put together, I think I think I've answered all of the other open questions and comments that we had from the other night. And again, thank you, Ron, for your updates and input. That was very helpful. I will, this last slide or two shouldn't take too long. I'll get it back out. And then I like Mark's idea. If, John, if you could get the folks at COA to maybe take an official support vote one way or the other. If they, by the way, if they don't, I am still comfortable with just saying Recalc is making this recommendation. And
same here.
by the way, you know, COA did in fact perform a rank and stack activity. So that's all we're really saying. We're not saying in that, well, at least I didn't read it, that COA made that recommendation. It's just
Right.
that they actually did the same exercise we did and came to the same conclusion from that numerical perspective.
I just don't want to hear from Marilyn and Nancy.
Right. No, that's good that you raised it. And I think
That's
it,
funny.
we definitely,
When is your
like,
next?
the vote
when
would
is
be
your-
very helpful.
When is your next COA meeting, John?
Monday, I think, the 22nd.
Monday,
Next Monday,
next Monday.
this coming Monday.
Yeah, Monday, 4 days from now.
Jenna,
5
do they
days
have
from
enough time to get this on the agenda?
I don't think so, but they they should meet again. Typically, the next meeting would be the second Monday in August, which will still be before the next select board meeting.
By a day.
Well, maybe they can do something similar, just have
Yeah,
a,
maybe a quick
special-
Zoom would work.
Quick
I
Zoom,
think,
yeah.
yeah, I would imagine Marilyn would want to pursue it. So I think it would be great to, this reminds me, I always love making this quote. It's an old Benjamin Franklin quote, and it goes like this: "We must all hang together, or most assuredly,
gonna-
we shall all hang separately."
That's
Separate.
right, that's right.
All right.
Okay, I don't have any other comments or thoughts. I think this has been very
Well, I
helpful.
want to thank, you, John and Ron for, and Mark for all the work that you put into the present, developing the slides, presentations.
And input from everybody, Jenna.
Yeah, input has been great.
provided-
And I'm
really
confident that you, John, will do a great job before the select board.
Great group. We need
I
to just
do
make
have
sure
an
Jenna to
audit- I
post.
still do have that audit on the 21st of August, so I'm not gonna claim I'm gonna be in
So
good mental
Mark, did you
state
say,
to be able
did you say Jenna has to post it?
Yeah, we need to post for Recalc for that select board meeting. All right, just to make sure that we're there. The other thing we need to do, I think, is give the board an expectation of how much time. I'm happy to do that, or someone else can do it, but it feels to me,
I think what you said the last time, half hour for slides, half hour for Q&A, I'd budget an hour for this conversation. And if it's
think
less,
that's what it
great,
should
but
have.
I think we should, we should ask for an hour.
yeah, I think that's exactly right. Okay, I will send a note to Matt and Carlo and just mention kind of what this is and suggestion that's what we ought to do.
Okay. Is there
Could
anything
I
else?
just could I just ask Jenna, there's always a thing at the end of a meeting, for subjects not, anticipated. Would this be something not anticipated that we could sneak on Mondays?
I don't think so. I think it's too important of a topic
Yeah,
to go on.
I would agree, yes.
It's a vote, it's a
Sorry.
physical vote. I don't think you can get away.
Got to
with
do it right.
We've taken so long to do it, let's get it right. So one less thing for people to be able to argue about that, and somebody could rightfully say, no, this is not right. Just
Right.
even if they're totally supportive of what you're trying to do, they could rightfully say, no, you got to give 7 days, whatever it is for the Council on Aging. You have to give that fair notice. Okay.
Can I make one other quick suggestion on that? Not that I'm necessarily volunteering, but would it be helpful for somebody from Recalc to give COA a quick a quick run through on these as well as part of that conversation?
Run through the presentation or?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, they're gonna do a vote on a recommendation, we can run through where we are and what we've done, and, you know, I think that actually is the context for the whole thing, quite frankly. But I don't know, I just wondering if it would be worth, having somebody there to, you know.
Well,
help
John
support-
and Nora, could you ask Nancy if that would be helpful? In other words, once again, we don't want to say that,
Well, especially if we do this online, like a Zoom meeting, it would be easy to
Yep.
attend and just, you know.
Is it
John has
something,
his hand up.
Jenna,
Yep.
could Jenna send that out so that to all council members, so they could read it firsthand?
I can I make one thought that I think that Nancy and Marilyn have been engaged in this kind of throughout and have made a lot of comments that have been really, really helpful.
Yep.
Mhm.
And I wouldn't want to position this as, hey, any comments, folks?
No.
Rather,
Right.
I want to position it as, hey, Nancy and Marilyn were participants and made some recommendations. This is the presentation.
Yeah.
Kind of FYI.
That's very
And-
important because
And the open issue only is their vote on
Right.
taking it forward. I think opening it would just be,
I agree.
Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't in that perspective, I was thinking exactly that, you know, we've continued to advocate for communication and for, given COA an equal footing in all of this, so I have no issue with that presentation, but I wasn't saying, oh, let's just have them hack at it. That's not, absolutely not. This,
Right.
I want
But
to,
I don't think it's so much that, or I think Mark's point, and I've certainly learned that lesson the hard way over the years. You got to be very clear as what you're asking them for. If you're just
the ask is
showing
for,
them, this is it,
FYI.
you got to
Yeah.
say that right away.
Yeah.
Otherwise, people natural thing is, oh, they're showing it to me, then they're
well, and I don't, I guess to that point, my intention was, I wasn't thinking we would take this presentation and circulate it around. I would say we can present it, but I wouldn't
Right.
let it go anywhere until we're ready to actually present it in
Public forum.
on the
Yeah.
18th, on the 20th of August.
So I am the liaison from the select board to the Council on Aging. I would be willing to present it to them at a meeting on the 19th, if that would be helpful.
My only suggestion, and you said it earlier, Mark, it's a day before. It would be, if they, when they meet on Monday, if they can agree to do a quick Zoom meeting some other night, I think
Yes.
that would be
Even better.
more appropriate and just really stay focused on that single concept, topic, idea, period. And even without necessarily having to go through the entire presentation, but, key points, I think that would be.
Yeah, and you don't want our presentation to influence their decision either. So they
Right.
should come up with their own decision.
And I think the last thing on that is that it probably does not make sense to circulate this because it is meant to be a presentation to the select board. And
Exactly.
It wouldn't make sense for the community to have seen it in advance of the board.
right and already be calling up select board.
Well,
members,
I mean, it's
whatever.
obviously bits and pieces of it have been out there in our
Mhm.
meetings, but that's because they're public. But yeah, the actual final will be done for the select board.
Okay.
So
John
is it
Parsons again. Okay.
We
John?
don't want to circulate this, but can I show them that one sentence that we're talking about?
The sentence on the recommendation?
Yes,
Oh, sure.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I just.
Oh,
I
our
just
vote
wanna
is
keep it-
public.
Yeah.
Anything that we've done is public.
We're
Yeah, that's true,
recorded.
okay.
We're recorded right now. So
Yeah. All right,
Okay. Now,
are we gonna have
Motion-
another meeting, John? A recalc meeting? We don't have one scheduled. We had one scheduled, but it ended up being today. So
right. So what do the members think? I'm not sure there's another role for us.
Yeah.
Because PPC, and it's a new recalc committee with, a PPC thing plus two members. Right, and one from the COA and then one from the select board. That's the group. that's gonna
Unless you
work
just
well.
want to do a Zoom meeting and for a final walkthrough of the presentation, maybe, I don't know, it's up to you.
Can I suggest, it may actually make sense to schedule a meeting after the select board meeting.
Well, because we do have until the 30th, 31st, yeah.
But if there are any
Yeah.
questions that are raised or things that we feel we could better share
That's a-
with them,
That's a great
that
point.
that
Mike.
might be really good. And then that could also be essentially the dissolution meeting.
Okay. So what would be the following? So the select board's on the 20th. The following, would it be next day or next week? What do people think? So it's the 21st or the 28th, because those are Wednesdays, right?
I would vote for the 28th only because I know that week for me is
Okay.
gonna end up being crazy, but,
How about other people?
28th looks fine.
Okay. All right. All right. So next meeting will be the 28th. And
Do we bring pizza and everything else as a final meeting and
cook out at Mark's.
we started during COVID and everything else, so.
God, a long time, guys.
Right, Jenna? So you're gonna pay for pizza, right, Jenna?
As long as it's under $50.
There you
So
go.
maybe only a couple.
We'll do it at the senior center and use some of that, do an evening, presentation and make it a senior meet. No, okay. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Second. Okay. Now we'll take the roll call vote. Ron Assini,
Yes.
Nora Bucko,
Yes.
Mark Doxer,
Yes.
John Parsons,
Yes.
John Sasso,
Yes.
John O'Neill, yes. Thank you all.
All right, everybody. Have a great
Thanks,
rest of your
folks.
day.
Take
rest
care.
of your
Good job,
evening.
everyone. Take care.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.